You are Locked On Golden Gophers POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Gophers losing heartbreak and frustrating fashion, I might add. Final score versus Rutgers, 26-19. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another Gophers postcast right here, Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. Gophers Hall of Famer, as usual, Ron Johnson. Host of the Ron Johnson Show each and every Tuesday. Give him a follow on X at 3Ron Johnson. Kane Rob, host of Locked On Gophers podcast. He's on X. Give him a follow at Gophers Kane Rob. So much to get into, guys. Brosmer versus Kaliakmanis. Gophers 4-game win streak on the line. But first, quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by FanDuel. Check this out. Place your first $5 bet. You're getting $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Check it all out over at FanDuel.com today to get started. Okay, guys, trying to make it 5 wins in a row versus the guy we all know too well, Athan Kaliakmanis. And this would end in obviously heartbreak, kind of frustrating fashion. Maybe the Gophers' worst 4 minutes of football we've seen all season. Fourth quarter, kind of game on the line. You got the lead. You got a chance to run out some clock. They go offensive holding. They lose a fumble by Greer's to tight end. Then defensively, they get called for a pretty ticky-tack PI call and then give up an easy touchdown pitch and catch. And then actually next possession, they give up a safety as well. The game was kind of neck and neck all day until things kind of completely unraveled at the end. Again, final score 26-19. 4-game win streak snapped. Ron, just kick us off. It's fresh. It's raw. Your knee-jerk reactions and emotions after this tough loss.
Yeah, so it's tough when you see how it played out. So Darius Taylor, non-existent today. I think that was they didn't do themselves any justice or favors by not getting Darius Taylor the ball more. I know the situation at times didn't call for it, but it felt like it became a little bit too much Max Brosmer and not enough controlling the line of scrimmage with the run game first and then passing. Rutgers is a team that's given up almost 400 yards a game, 392 to be exact, a game this season. And when you watch the USC and UCLA games, because I love to look at like opponents, they both played UCLA and USC. They absolutely ran up and down the field on Rutgers. And so I thought Minnesota was going to come in and have a similar day, and it just didn't happen. And so it is what it is. But they've got to, you got to bounce back. You got to move on. This was one of those. The good thing is they're bowl eligible because they got a bye week, and then they got a tough, 2 games left of Penn State and then Wisconsin. And so it's up to them now. Do they want to have an 8-game win season, or do they want to go 7-6, or do they end up 6-6? It can easily be a 6-6 season, and then we have to go back and say, you're going to a bowl game, you're 6-6, but was it a success? And I think that's the problem is like the expectations were low, then they were high, and now they're back to like, I can't believe. So it's one of those things where I'm gonna sit back tonight. I'm gonna have myself maybe a cocktail to just go to bed, and then I got to get up and do the Vikings game day live and worry about the Vikings. And so I just hope this is not a Minnesota thing, because like you see, this should be a win, and then you don't want the Jaguars with Mac Jones to come out and beat the Vikings. And so it's tough, but I just felt like the lack of Darius Taylor to me stood out.
To your point, Ron, 45 pass attempts by Max Brosmer. Kane, I'm going to give you a chance to do the same thing. Just kind of big picture, broad observations and takeaways first before we get into all the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I agree with Ron. I think Darius Taylor not getting much usage in this one was really a big question mark. I do wonder, was he more hurt than we had imagined? It looked like he was limping off on one of the plays that the announcer called out as well. I'm not sure if it was really limping or not, but only 2 receptions in this one. They didn't really get him involved in the pass game with those 45 pass attempts that you were talking about. So that was all a little surprising to me, but the big thing for me is how well this Rutgers defense just bullied Minnesota. You're talking about a team that was 95th overall in defense in the country in total defense, and they were 107th in sacks, and yet they had 4 sacks on the Gophers in this one game. So I think there were a lot of miscommunications on offense, and the offensive line definitely does not want to look back at this film because they're not going to be happy with what they put out there.
Yeah, 100%. I want to touch on both those topics here in a second. But, Ron, I just want to get this out of the way because everybody, it feels like, was talking about the officiating at one juncture or another in this game. And to be fair, there's some terrible calls on the day. It was a tough tough day at the office for the Stripes. But as a former player, I mean, you've been on the sideline during those situations. When things aren't going your way, what's like the mindset or like the conversations taking place on the sidelines or maybe at halftime to shake those things off, the things that you can't control, and just go out and keep playing football?
Yeah, so the thing about the refs, like, you just can't worry about it. And that's part of the game. Like, I tell my daughter that even with softball and umpires, because I think it's even worse with umpires, like, and not just in little league sports. I mean, it's in college and you're seeing it now. I mean, I've watched 4 videos of college softball where the umpires are getting it wrong. I've watched a few major league situations now. Angel Hernandez is one that comes to mind, of just this terrible calls. And so some of the calls the refs were making, honestly, like, I think they were warranted. Like, it is what it is. Like, you got to keep your hands off the receiver. But there were a couple, like the one deep ball to Justin Wally. He got pushed by the receiver running the deep ball. He ran literally a 9 route, and I don't know why Wally was so close, because, like, the whole goal is stay in front. If he's leaving. So if you can stay in front of him and then slow down, now you play the ball. He got pushed out of position because you can see kind of the bump and push by, and the refs didn't call it. If you were to flip that and Justin Wally were to push the receiver a little bit like that and then go make the interception, we're going to see 17 flags go up. And so I think that to me should have been an offensive pass interference to start that game. Other than that, though, it just you just have to let it go. And the refs were letting a lot of little stuff go. But I mean, the face masks were face masks. The holds were holds. You can't worry about the refs on like 1 or 2 calls. Just one, don't put yourself in a situation. And that's what I've always been told. Don't put yourself in a situation where the umpire, I'm thinking softball, my daughter, but where the referee can make the game. Because I tell my daughter that, though. I'm like, when you're batting, don't leave it to the ump. Yeah. Don't leave it to the ump. And today that almost happened to her out in St. Louis. She's in St. Louis playing right now, and there was 3-1, and there was clearly going to be an outside pitch, but she swung at it anyway. But that's the mindset. I'm okay with that because I'm like, you know what? You're thinking, I'm not letting this umpire make a bad call. I'm going to take the game out of his hands. Then the next one, she jacks a deep ball to the fence for a stand-up triple. But that's what I've taught her. Like, I want her at a young age to know, like, you take the umps out the game. Don't look back at the ump like, oh, can I get that as a ball because I'm trying to get on base. You earn it. You get on base by earning it. And so I think the same thing is in football. Like, you go earn it. Like, play through the play. So Justin Wally, because you can see when he got pushed, he kind of started stumbling and looking like, wait, where's the flag? Just keep playing. Like, play through that. Don't worry about the refs. The refs are not going to save you. Just keep going. And then, I mean, there's a lot of little things that you can say here and there. The one field goal, the extra point laces in. Does that mess with the game? It throws it off a little bit mentally. It gives Rutgers a thing. But Athan Kaliakmanis was a man on fire. He was Denzel Washington looking for PETA. Like, he came into that game with a chip on his shoulder.
The equalizer.
I said this on the pregame show. Exactly. He was Denzel in the Gladiator, Equalizer, and Man on Fire. Like, he was a man. Like, he was like, what? I'm putting cases on all shoot programs. 24-hour lockdown.
Pelican Bay.
He was out there serving them justice.
Yeah.
And hats off to him. I got to give him like this is the moment as an athlete. I don't care that I'm a former Gopher. I love the moment as an athlete. Like, anybody that has treated you like, and again, it's not bad. It's just they didn't want you. Like, so that it is what it is. Like, they felt like you weren't the answer for them. And I tell people that's why I tweeted that. It's life. I would say that to Athan's face. It is life. You are in life. People are going to always doubt you. People are not going to have your back. He found a place and he came back and won. So for people calling this karma and all this is sports. Like, grow up. This is not karma. PJ didn't do anything bad to him. Like, it's football. If you want somebody not to take your position, beat them. If you want to keep your position, earn it. And that's what he's doing at Rutgers. He earned it. But again, he still threw for 51% today, I think. And he's still like less than 200 some yards, interception,
240, 3 touchdowns,
but
1
they
pick.
were 4 for 14 on third down. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Like the defense did just enough, but they gave up some chunk plays that should not have happened. And then turnover at the end by the tight end. That's the game. Like without that turnover, they win the game. Like that's the game. Those turnovers and short fields, that's the game.
I want to put a pin in the officiating stuff because you're right. We could spend 30 minutes on that. And I'm with you, too. My dad used to say, hey, get the bat off your shoulder. If it's close, you swing the bat. Don't put yourself in that position, as you said. I think the two that I saw most fans kind of griping about the most were the no calls. The Daniel Jackson third down deep shot to the boundary looked like it could have been called for a pass interference if you're going to stay consistent with basically what you've called previously throughout the game. That was a no call. And then a helmet hit on the Max Brosmer sack and fumble, which they did end up recovering, but you saw the replay and it looked like, okay, that maybe could have been called as well. But nonetheless, again, you're right, Ron, as a player, you just got to move on. There's nothing you can do to control that. I want to go back to the point about Kane's kind of topic with the offensive line today. I'll be honest, I didn't know a ton about. I knew Rutgers lost 4 in a row. I knew, they're basically defensively, like you said, Kane, bottom 80th in a lot of categories in the country. They brought like the best front 7 in the country today to today's game. That's how they look. Like, what in the world do you think happened to the Gophers' offensive line today versus this pass rush and the ground game too? I'm sure that'll be an A topic throughout the week as well. Just nothing moving for Darius Taylor and Marcus Major for the most part. That was just an issue all day long, and you could argue out of all this stuff we're going to break down and talk about with this game the next 2 weeks, that was maybe the biggest surprise, maybe the biggest head scratcher of the game that ultimately kind of dictated this thing in the wrong direction for the Gophers.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that overall, I mean, the opportunities were there. There were some big shots that Max Brosmer missed in this one. There were times where the Gophers could go on and maybe stretch the clock out a little bit, put another score when you're up 16-14, but then that's when you take a sack, and then that's when you have a fumble, and then that's when you get a safety, and that flips the entire game. You give them a short field, you give them extra points in the ball back, and there's no coming back from that. So, I mean, yes, Rutgers did well. Athan was balling out. He had receivers dropping the ball today on a couple third downs that they probably could have completed. But in the end, I think the Gophers did more to themselves to lose this game than Rutgers did to fully snatch it from them.
I agree, which makes it hurt and sting just a little bit more, doesn't it? For sure. All right, plenty more deep dive from this one. Let's talk about PJ Fleck grades, and then we got to talk about that Penn State game coming up as well. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, they got something for every NFL fan with a huge payout for every new customer with I think is without a doubt their best promo of the year. And with FanDuel, when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Check this out. Right now, FanDuel's going to get you started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets guaranteed with your first $5 bet. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com today. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com for $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, guaranteed with your first $5 bet. Games within the games. Ron, you kind of touched on some of this stuff. I had this one circled. You already called it out. Third downs. Gophers 7 of 16 on third down. Not bad. Rutgers only 4 of 14. Both teams had 1 turnover today. Penalties, actually, at the end of the day, were pretty even. 5 for the Gophers, 4 for Rutgers. The ground game, that's really what ended up being the big difference. When you just look at team stats side by side, Rutgers 114 rushing yards today. Gophers just 19 rushing yards between Marcus Major and Darius Taylor. That's got to be the one that you just scratch your head the most and wonder what happened. What were some of the biggest stats or games within the games, Ron, that you think really dictated this one in Rutgers' favor?
Yeah, I mean the run game. So everybody, here's the thing. I hate when players miss. Like I said, I'm mad that the Jaguars are not at full strength right now. I just saw Dak Prescott is going to have season-ending surgery on his hamstring. We've had the Cooper Rush effect here in Minnesota. Having a guy go out, like even North Carolina, like, you know, when they lost their quarterback, same thing. I felt like the Gophers changed a little bit. Like people mentally get into a thing of like, oh, they don't got their star, man. We got this, or like, oh man, we got. they still got to stop the run. You still got to worry about the running backs. This is an RPO offense. This is, I'm going to hold the ball as long as possible and make you make a bad decision. Danny Strigow. So here's one. I watched a couple of those, Athan Kaliakmanis. Danny Strigow's job is to contain. Keep contained. Let the rest of the defense come. Your contain is on the RPO is to say, I'm letting the quarterback know you're not getting outside of me. The problem is you don't stop and keep your feet. You keep closing the gap. Like he was kind of hopping, standing there a couple times, and then you see Athan just realize like, all right, I'm gonna just let it go because now you got to go now. But what happens is you've allowed the offensive line to get the rest of their blocks going, and they're getting to the second level. And so if you're not going to close that gap, I would rather close the gap on the running back and trust that Athan Kaliakmanis getting outside of you is not going to get as many yards as the running back. And so number 20 comes in, the young freshman, and he wasn't going to play. But now because they only have 4 games left, he's able to play these last 4 games and still redshirt because I heard the broadcast talking about this. And so that's the tough thing. It's like he broke a lot of tackles. He broke a lot of arm tackles. I'd say that was the game within the game. That RPO, it felt like Corey Heatherman, and he knew about the RPO, and it just felt like they didn't have a true plan for it. Like it's almost like you have to send 2 guys and play way more man coverage and say, I'm sending one guy at the quarterback, I'm sending one guy at the running back, and we're going to blitz, or we're going to come from opposite angles, but you go get the running back, I'll come get the quarterback, but we're going hard. We're not going to sit back and play soft and let him dictate what he wants to do. And I would say, hey, Justin, and so on, so we got to play man. We got to play man with a single high safety. And in an RPO, there's only 2 routes. It's a go or it's a slant. That's it. Like there's not a lot of routes you can run in RPO. There's going to be a go or a slant. That's it. And then maybe you'll have an out. So 3 routes. You have an out, a slant, or a go. So if you are taking away the slant, just know he's going to break out and just make the play. Like I just felt like it was a little bit too much like, oh yeah, we know this guy. Like he's not this guy. He's not him. He was him today.
Yeah, 100%. Good point there. Kane, anything else from just the team-by-team stats that kind of just, just at knee-jerk glance reaction? I know, again, the game just ended 15 minutes ago, but just kind of caught your eye. We already talked about the 1 turnover. That felt like obviously had a lot to do with just the sour ending today. But anything else catch your eye as far as the games within the games?
No, I think I was just surprised at how much pressure they were able to get onto Max Brosmer.
It was crazy.
That was the only thing outside of it. I mean, 4 sacks for a team that I don't know exactly what they're at, but being 107th in the country, I can't imagine that it was super high. They might have had just barely over 4 sacks on the season, and now you're talking about they maybe doubled their production in this one game. So that felt really uncharacteristic and very unfortunate for the Gophers.
Yeah, 100%. How about the other side of the ball, too? Again, the defense was getting gashed in the first half, the secondary. A lot of big, deep chunk plays, right? There wasn't much pass rush. I know a lot of people are pounding the table. Got to get after Kaliakmanis here in the second half. Early on, though, DBs kind of had a tough day. It wasn't really until they started dialing up the pass rush in the second half they were able to slow him down. In fact, Athan had 216 passing yards in the first half. He ended with 240 passing yards by the end of the game. So a huge adjustment there. But what was kind of the overarching theme today on the defensive side of the ball that you guys took away from this one? Like, what were they missing the most, or what did they need to do different or maybe adjust? Because there were stretches, Ron, to your point, where they were forcing those 3 and outs and getting the Rutgers offense out of sync. It was just too inconsistent throughout the game.
Turnovers. They lived and died by the turnover all season, and they only had 1 today. Great job by Ethan Robinson undercutting that route. Poor decision by Athan Kaliakmanis by throwing it late. Like at that point, throw it out of bounds or pull it down and go. And here's the thing. Athan used to, like I said that in the pregame show. I'm like, the Athan Kaliakmanis we saw was he would take too long sometimes to make a decision, and he'd make the wrong decision, and it would be too much boom versus bust. He managed that today. I don't know if it was an overcompensation of conversations with the coach. Overcompensation. So I don't want people to think that's not a tongue twister. I mean, it's a tongue twister, but it's 2 different words. Overcompensation of conversations about what he should do with the ball, because you don't want to you have to overcompensate and understand, like, hey, look, man, here's where you struggle. And honestly, maybe that's what they were playing for. Like on 3rd down, That's maybe why they were 4 for 14. They're like, look, we're going to live to fight another day. Let's punt this thing out of here. And maybe that's what I'm missing. I might have to go back and watch this, and maybe that's what I'm missing is that this was Rutgers' plan the whole time. Hey, let's not give the Gophers a short field. Let's not put the ball in danger. Let's just punt and see what we can do and force them to drive a long field. That was a little bit of it. I think they led by the turnover. One of the top 5 turnover schools in the country, and they didn't get it done today. They were even in the turnover battle. They lost the time of possession battle, and, third downs weren't detrimental. Like, they were not forcing him into a lot of third longs.
Yeah, to your point here, Ron, since October 1st, Gophers have had +9 in the take give, +9. That's number 1 in the country among all, for power schools, I guess I should say. So number 1 in the country the last, 5 games? So, yeah, you're absolutely right. They did live and die off those turnovers, and they just couldn't cash. There was a couple off the fingertips they just couldn't cash in today, which probably would have made a huge difference. Coach's corner time. Give me one thing that just stuck out to you guys as far as like PJ and the coaches go. There's a couple different directions I feel like you could go, but Kane, start with you. Coach's corner. You're just kind of 2 cents on PJ's day at the office, or either of the coordinators, I guess, as well, that you want to call out in either department.
Well, first off, I think the timeout that PJ had early to stop that QB sneak touchdown, that was a great call, but unfortunately didn't make much of a difference because then they give up the touchdown the next play after the timeout.
Right.
But I know some fans were questioning too why he wouldn't take the timeout to end the first half. There's only like 10 seconds left and they were getting ready to have to punt. But a lot of people are like, what if you block the punt? What if Coy Parrish has a big return? So I know there were some questions on that. So I thought that he was smart with that first time out, maybe could have used that second one. But overall, I don't know. It's hard. I'm still evaluating how this game went overall.
100%, guys. A couple more minutes left. Let's talk about this Penn State and Wisconsin game. Both those are on deck. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 10 million members to date. And for me and my money, it's just by far the easiest. It's the most exciting way to get in on all the action while you watch your favorite sports and you watch your favorite players. So simple. All you got to do, you pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. Football season still in full swing here. So whether it's anytime touchdowns, it could be receptions, tackles, sacks, you name it, they got it. Take your pick on more or less. Add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Plus, they now offer Apple Pay, quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Download the Prize Picks app. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly with any $5 wager. Okay, Ron, 2 games left. You got top 10 ranked Penn State on deck next. Then you end the season with Wisconsin. You got a week off, though, which is huge. You get to rest up, kind of clean up the mistakes. What do they got to do to come out and make this a competitive game and not let this loss today kind of sink this last stretch of the season like you mentioned? What do you think?
Well, Miami just lost to Georgia Tech. So just because you're in the top 12 means absolutely nothing. Minnesota historically, when I play, we beat Penn State twice. We only play them twice because we rotate.
Yep.
They were top 2 in the country. They were top 6. They lost to Minnesota. I think in was that 20? It was PJ's year, so I don't remember what year that was. But
When?
Was it 2018?
2019.
Yeah. 2019.
Yeah.
I knew it had been a while. So yeah, because it was exactly 20 years. We won in 1999 and they won in 2020 or 2019. And so when you think about that, they have historically done well against Penn State. They've historically, and it's at home, so they'll have the crowd to help them out through this. So I think mentally, and PJ's great. This is why they have the 1-0 championship season every week. You have to flush this game out.
Yep.
You're already bowl eligible. Let's forget about it. Again, the worst thing that happened to Minnesota this week was a lot of people praising them and a lot of people talking about 5 in a row and all this other stuff. And Penn State's the hardest team they have to play. I do feel like as a nation, we all overlooked Rutgers and we moved on to Penn State and we were excited about the bye week to Penn State. So now flush it. You have Sunday. The unfortunate thing is you don't have a 1 week turn to get it out your mind.
Right.
You got to handle it for another week. But I'm pretty sure PJ Fleck's going to be ready. When you watch Penn State, they're good. They're well coached. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They're very boring. It's not like a high flying, super sexy team. But they're the old school Joe Paterno. Do what we got to do to win games. defensive-led team. Quarterback, just get the ball to your weapons and let them make stuff happen. They don't try to take the top off. So for a team like Minnesota, it's going to be a grind out game. Penn State's not a team that turns the ball over. Like, they're not going to be loose with the ball. So in order to win that game, the Gophers, I mean, honestly, like, chip on your shoulder. You got to go and check, because the world this next 2 weeks is about to talk about how bad you are. You got to get that chip off your shoulder and go out there and just absolutely feel like we deserve to beat Penn State. And then the national narrative changes. You upset Penn State a week before the top 12 has to be named completely. You can really change the way that people think about you.
Yeah, and you know what? If Darius Taylor was a little dinged up, nice to get this extra week to rest up, because, again, just this offense clearly is night and day when he is at his best, healthy, explosive self for sure. Kane, same thing. Number one thing you want to see more of, or maybe a change in when it comes to this matchup versus Penn State in 2 weeks.
I just want to see more aggressive risk-taking, I think. I think overall defensively, I think Penn State's going to give us our run for our money. I think there's going to be times where you're just going to have to go and win another turnover, or go and come up with those tip balls that they were missing on today. But one thing I'm really curious about how Minnesota's going to handle it is their tight end, Tyler Warren. I don't think the Gophers have faced a tight end like him this season, and that can be a difference maker if you don't have someone to slow that down. I mean, I think he had over 200 yards on USC by himself in multiple touchdowns. So he's the type of guy that can really flip a game. So hopefully the Gophers have some things to slow him down.
What else is just sticking out to you guys, kind of big picture with this new Big Ten, besides, Indiana being 9-0, that's like the story of the year. Nobody saw that coming. This is why this was such a tough pill to swallow today, because a lot of people were looking at the Big Ten standings, and you see the Gophers sitting at 5th at 6-3, and then you're thinking about, okay, just get through Rutgers here, should be no problem. Now you're sitting at 7-3 and just kind of etched in that, kind of top 5 in the Big Ten. But obviously they lose today. What else is sticking out to you guys though, Ron? Big Ten conference right now. What do you notice the most?
So what I know about the Big Ten Conference?
Yeah, just what's sticking out. We're 10 games in now. What's maybe
it doesn't feel like the Big Ten this year.
It doesn't, does it?
It really doesn't. Like, I don't have any feelings of a Big Ten.
Yeah, kind of lost its Big Ten identity. So
I feel like everybody's lost it. Like Colorado and Tech. Like Colorado's in the Big 12. Texas is in the SEC. Like, it's just. It's weird, and it's all about money. I think long term, what's going to end up happening is these teams are all going to create like a power, because they're calling themselves they were the Power 5, now they're the Power 4. They're going to call themselves something else eventually and just become like a powerhouse. Like they're going to try to get the NCAA to succumb even more to their will and say, look, here's what we want. If you want our football, here's what we need you to do and stay out of our way so we can pay our players. But honestly, like, it doesn't feel like the Big Ten. So that's the biggest thing that stood out to me. Like Oregon, being at the top, it has no feeling of the Big Ten. Indiana, even though they're in the Big Ten and they've been in the Big Ten, it just feels weird to say like we could have an Indiana-Oregon Big Ten championship game.
You tell somebody that 2 years ago, and
never would have had that on my bingo
card.
Man.
They put
never.
you in the loony bin.
Even if you said like Indiana, Ohio State, people would have been like, huh? Really?
Right.
Like it doesn't feel like that. Because again, Oregon, they've done some dumb stuff in the last couple of years. So let's not act like they haven't like completely let it go at the end of a season. Every like time they face teams in bigger bowl games or whatever, they get the wool gets pulled over their eyes and they do something. And I know that's why Dan Lanning is doing all this additional coaching, the gladiator stuff and entertain and he's trying to make sure they keep their chest poked out and understand who they are. But, and then everybody wants to knock them off their pedestal because that's what the gladiator is all about. You stand in the Coliseum and somebody wants to kill you. So that's what he's trying to give them, that feeling of like, everybody's coming in here to try to kill us. We got to kill them first. But that's my takeaway. It does not feel like the Big Ten right now.
Ron, I wrote this down a couple of weeks ago. I don't think I asked you last week, but as a Gopher Hall of Famer, if I said you could only win one game between Penn State and Wisconsin, which one do you want more? Is it Penn State because it's the huge upset, or Wisconsin because it's Wisconsin and every year
Wisconsin? Now you don't even need to explain it no more. Wisconsin, it's the easy. It's like easy. I don't care. Like Penn State, yay! Who cares? Like that Penn State win. Here's the thing: if they beat Penn State and they lose to Wisconsin, it's still going to suck. Yeah. If they lose to Penn State and beat Wisconsin, I am going to I got a bottle up there. I got two of the nicest, but you know what? for the YouTube people, if you're watching this back, you make sure you go back and watch this on YouTube.
He's pulling it out. He's got the anticipation building.
Here it comes. You can only get this.
I got two of the nice. I got the really nice Cave de Ora, direct from Ixtapa, Mexico. So I got the extra añejo. So it's been sitting. The añejo. They sit that for a long time. I got the extra. So when I say smooth, I mean this is smooth. This is Rob. And you've been through this. And Luke, you probably done this too.
Oh.
When you get that first back in the day when you didn't have the full beard and you got the shave though, and they cleaned all this up. You just had the goatee and like a really nice close with a razor. Oh, this is how smooth that is. This is like super.
I didn't know where you're going with that, but yeah, it makes sense.
Or there's like when Gisele Bundchen gets waxed, when she goes and waxes her legs, like her legs are like, this is how smooth it is. Shout out to Tom Brady. And then also have the Blantons. We've all heard the story about Blantons.
Oh, we know Blantons.
And the real one. I got two of these. This one's not even open. So this is my one that's keeping the office. I do have an open one in the liquor cabinet. But yeah, like they beat Wisconsin. I got this, and I'm going to get a cigar. And I'm not smoking in the house. Like last time they beat Wisconsin, I go out right there on my deck.
Yep.
And I light one up and I have a little drink. So yeah, give me that. Penn State is like, yay, they won. I'm gonna go have some pizza. Like that's different.
Yeah, maybe Chuck E. Cheese, maybe keep it TV PG. No, they beat Wisconsin and bring home the axe. Yeah, things get real over at the Johnson household.
Oh yeah, I'm running down the neighborhood probably screaming with a flag. Like I'm running down the middle of the street. Screaming because I got some neighbors that are from Wisconsin that love to fly their little Badger flag.
Of course, there's always one.
Pulling out the rowing celly while he's. Oh yeah,
I got the oar behind me.
Yep.
I will be in the street on my bike with the oar, like smoking a cigar, like riding with the Bluetooth speaker in my backpack, like blaring the Gopher Rouser.
All right, one more quick one here for you guys. On the count of three, I want you to both tell me where your Heisman vote is going. I think I know Ron's. I don't think it's changed since last week, but on the count of three, both say it out loud. Where's your Heisman vote going? 1, 2, 3.
Gene T.
Max Brosmer.
I knew the extra delay we were going to get something off the wall.
No, I got Travis Hunter, man. I understand his thought process. So he's playing quarterback or cornerback and receiver more than Charles Woodson did.
Yeah.
And Charles
he's
Woodson
balling at both.
He's balling at both. Here's the big difference, though. He's got to have a Heisman moment. Genty is giving them Heisman moments of highlights.
Woodson had that Heisman moment.
Woodson had the punt return against Ohio State with the pose.
Yep.
That is it. Travis Hunter, we're in a new era of social media dances. So he continues to do these TikToks that everybody keeps tweeting about that he should do. And he does them. He pulls it off somehow. Like he did the Spider-Man backflip. He did the, roll the ball, go get the dog thing. So we know that. But he's got to and he doesn't I know he can return kicks and punts. He hasn't really done it. Mm-hmm. But if Deion wants him to have this, again, they are in the top 25, whether it's the last game of the year against Oklahoma State, he's got to return. He's either got to have a pick six and a receiving touchdown, or he's got to return a punt or something big. Like he's got to do something
play.
special.
He's got to have a splash play.
Yeah, he's got to have a splash play. Like if he were going for the Heisman and he did what Coy Parrish did against USC, that would be a splash, like a ridiculous flip over the top
statement
of people.
Game. Put the stamp.
Exactly.
Stamp of
like
approval.
He has not done that because they've been either losing or just blowing people out.
Right.
So he hasn't had to have a lot of moments yet. But he continues to be good on both sides of the ball. So that's why I say that. Charles Woodson won it because of that. They haven't had a cornerback since, but I do love the Heisman House commercials where everybody's like joking with Charles Woodson. Like, are we making room for another DB in here? So I love that.
I still like the Uber Eats with McConaughey and Jerry's eating rice. I still like that NFL conspiracy one as well. By the way, Cam Ward, the last 5 days, the last week, really, Cam Ward ended up sneaking into one of the Heisman favorites in the lead at plus 185. But now, as Ron pointed out,
I don't know about today,
as Ron pointed out, now that they lost, he'll probably get dumped. At least bounce back a few spots. Dylan Gabriel in the mix. Travis Hunter, though, and G&T both in the top for sure. All right, let's get out of here, guys. Gophers crumble in the fourth quarter. quarter versus Rutgers. Final score 26-19. 4-game winning streak snapped. They moved to 6-4 on the year. Huge shout out to all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. Got to go check out all of Ron's work on X at 3RonJohnson. Plus, check him out every Tuesday on the Ron Johnson Show. Kane Rob, Locked On Gophers. Give him a follow on X. He's at Gophers Kane Rob. Remember to like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Same time, same place. First Penn State. But until then, signing.